Justin Trudeau has resigned or has announced that he will resign as both Prime Minister and the leader of the Liberal Party in Canada. He announces he expects there to be, in a sense, internal primaries within the party to decide on the next leader of the Liberal Party, but it will not be him. I expect that this will lead ultimately to an election. I mean, the election is going to happen in Canada before October anyway, but probably an earlier election once the Liberals decide who their leader is, and once that person gets established and determined, and maybe takes the position of Prime Minister for a few weeks, months, they will set a date for an election. Right now, polls show the Conservatives thrashing them. The Conservatives don't quite seem to have 50%. And again, it's a parliamentary system, so they would have to find a coalition partners. But Conservatives do look in the polls to be significantly over 40%, with the Liberals going from a high in the polls of 50% in 2016, I think it was, to a low of less than half of that, at 20% today, with the Conservatives basically being the beneficiary of almost all of that gain. So that is, I think, given Poilievre, I'm going to have to figure out how to pronounce his name if he actually wins, or as he's running, so we can report on it. Given that he's about as good as you could get, I guess, in the world in which we live, and certainly in a Canadian world in which we live, he sounds really, really, really good on some issues, and is a dramatic improvement over Trudeau, and has it doesn't seem kind of to have the baggage, and seems like he seems like a serious human being. That's great. Have a politician that's a serious he seems like a serious human being. So I am looking forward to following him. I'm looking forward to this election. I'm looking forward to the leftist Trudeau being out of there. He has been ultimately a disaster for the Canadian economy. Done anything from preventing any kind of reforms to the medical system, which is really, really bad in Canada, to governing during a time of inflation, of economic really stagnation, of a lot of economic angst, it's, and of course I remember what he did to the truckers in a sense of freezing their bank accounts. No trial, no rule of law, no innocent before you found guilty, but before you're actually in court. Or before a verdict has come down, none of that. Just freeze their accounts, punish them. So this is actually a very good move, and very good for liberty, freedom for all of us. I think one of the few conservative leaders out there who seems to have a significant following, who is not a national conservative, doesn't strike me as one, who is not a populist, who is not a economic statist, but quite the opposite. He seems like, as much as he can, an American, what do you call it? As free market as you can get within this environment. So that is good. That is good. So I'm excited about that. Look, Canada, if they get him as Prime Minister, it looks like they're on a better track than anything I see in Europe or anything I can see in even the United States, and that is good. All right, so that is Trudeau. That is Trudeau. I'm sure those of you who live in Canada are super excited by this and super thrilled by this, and the prospects for a much greater economic freedom in Canada. and free speech freedom, because Trudeau was terrible in free speech, and rule of law in Canada moving into the future.